Hey, welcome back everybody. Now we're going to talk about the Django template language. Django needs a way to dynamically create HTML documents, and that's where the template language is. The template language is similar to HTML with some code-like constructs in it, and we're going to talk about the code-like constructs. The syntax is similar to Python syntax, just looks a little bit different, and it's actually very useful when you want to create your HTML dynamically from values in a database. In the last video, we had actually used the Django template language, but now we want to just explain it further a little bit because we're going to be using it in different parts of this course. This is an example of an HTML document that also has some Django template language infused into it. So you can see the for statements that goes through a loop. So in this case, it's going for story in the story list and then does something to that story variable. Also filters it by using the upper filter. So we'll get into what all this is. So this is just a very good example because it shows the use of tags, it shows the use of variables, and it shows the use of filters. In this case, the filters present are upper and truncate words. The variables, story, and the tags, you have the for tag, you have the block tag, you have the extends tag. And we're going to go into some of this in a bit more detail. Talking about constructs for the syntax, you have variables, tags, filters, comments. We're not going to delve into comments because there's nothing special about comments. You can always add comments in an HTML document the regular way you've always been adding comments. So we're just going to talk about variables, tags, and filters. Variables. Variables are denoted by the double curly braces. And in this case, if you look at the image on the right, you can see that blog post.title. That's an example of a variable. Anytime you have a dot notation in a variable name, it could mean several things. So it could search, okay, this title, is it a key in a dictionary? Is it an index? If it were numeric, it would say, is this an index in a list? Is this an attribute in a class? Is this a function? Is this a method? Things like that. We're not going to bother our head about that, but you'll see it in action when we do get to use the template syntax much more. So that's it for variables. Next, we'll talk about tags. Tags are denoted by the curly braces and the percent sign. You have several tags. You have the load tag, you have URL tag, CSRF token tag, for tag, and some of these tags we're going to get to use during the course of the series of lectures. The key thing to know is that variables and tags are different because in tags, of course, they're fundamentally different, but in terms of the syntax, they're also different. Because with tags, you have the percent and you have the curly braces. With variables, you have the double curly braces. That's the key difference. Well, we know what variables do. They hold values that could change in the HTML document. So instead of hard coding the values in the HTML document, the variable can hold different values at different times depending on the user input. And what is pulled from the database and whatnot. But tags are very different in what they do. Some tags handle control flow, some tags give added functionality, and some tags are important for, form data protection. These are some tags. So you have the load tag, you have the URL tag. The load tag loads a particular set of templates into the current working HTML document or HTML template that you're working with. The URL tags helps to prevent you from having to add code URLs in your HTML document. And we're going to use this URL tag a lot. This if tag is very similar to the Python if statement because it checks for if a condition is true, and if it is, it performs a certain task. So it's very popular in templates, and we're going to use this for sure during the course of building out this project. Only difference you'd see with this and of course a normal Python statement is, in this case, there's an end if keyword, which you never use in Python. And of course, there's the percent and the curly brace, which is never used in Python to denote an if statement as well. But fundamentally, they do the same thing. This, the for loop, is used for recursion, like going through a loop, so going through every data point in a sequence of data. In this example, athlete lists, let's assume it's a list, like maybe just a normal Python list. What the for loop does is it goes through that list and gets every occurrence of an athlete. And what you see next is the athlete variable, athlete.name variable, now captures the changing, the changing variables from the list. So this just shows how, you mix tags and variables to perform a particular task. If you look at the image on the bottom left corner, you can see the empty tag. And that usually works with the for tag. And what it does is, if, for example, athlete list is currently empty because the database has not been populated or whatnot, the empty tag just renders what should be, what you'd see if you have an empty list or an empty sequence. The key thing to note here is the for loop has an end for statement, very important, which is a significant difference from the for loop in pure Python. Next, we discuss filters. Think of filters like, I don't know if you've used any of those popular image editing software where you can use different filters, maybe black and white filter, to change the look of your image. That's exactly what filters do here. The filter modifies a variable in a Django template document in different ways. So there's the lower, there's the truncate words, there's length, there's default, there's upper. We're going to get to use some of them, but it's good to just know that they exist. For example, the length filter, that's exactly what it does. It returns the length of that variable. The default filter just says, okay, in case if this value is empty, this variable is empty, show this default thing there. And that's what it does. At this point, we're just going to end this video. The objective was to introduce you to the Django template syntax so that when we do use it, it will be familiar with you. So, I hope I was able to achieve that. Thank you.